E-Biology class, Fatima Convent High School, myself Dipali, Chapter 7, Control and Coordination, Class 10. Now let us study human brain today, which is the most important organ of the human body and which makes us a human or a distinct organism from rest of the world. Now, what is a human brain and the function and structure of human brain? Now, we know that a human nervous system is the system which controls and coordinates the human body, and this system is divided into two main parts, that is the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. So, the human nervous system is divided into two broad parts, that is the central nervous system or CNS in short, and peripheral nervous system. Which is in short written as PNS. The central nervous system is made up of two main organs, brain and spinal cord. And the peripheral nervous system is made up of cranial nerves and spinal nerves. Now, the general function of the CNS is it receives information from external environment and other parts of the body and brings about integration, that is, brings about coordination between the external stimuli and the human body. Spinal cord is involved in reflex action, and brain is the main coordinating center of the body, like your computer. CPU of the computer is the brain of the computer. The peripheral nervous system communicates between CNS and the other parts of the body. The brain allows us to think and take action based on that thinking. Now there are sympathetic and parasympathetic nerves. Nervous system forms involuntary or autonomous nervous system, which is connected with internal involuntary organs. So this is what our nervous system constitutes. Now let us understand this through this paragraph. Is reflex action the only function of spinal cord? Obviously no. Since we know that we are thinking beings, spinal cord is made up of nerves which supply information to think about. Thinking involves more complex mechanism and neural connections. These are concentrated in the brain, which is the main coordinating center of the body. The brain and spinal cord constitute the central nervous system. They receive information from all of the parts of the body and integrates it or coordinates it. We also think about our actions, writing, talking, moving a chair, clapping at the end of the program are examples of voluntary actions, which are based on deciding what to do next. So the brain also has to send messages to the muscles. That is, two types of actions or two types of controlling system, voluntary control system, involuntary control system. And in the second way, in which the nerves communicate with the muscles. Communication between central nervous system and the other parts of the body is facilitated by peripheral nervous system. We understood what is peripheral nervous system. Consisting of cranial nerves arising from the brain and spinal nerves arising from the spinal cord. The brain thus allows us to think and take action based on that thinking. As you will expect, this is accomplished through a complex design, with different parts of the brain responsible for integrating different input and output. The brain has three major parts or regions, namely the forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain. So let us study this brain in detail now. You can see the structure of brain here. Now, the brain has three major parts: the forebrain, the midbrain, and the hindbrain. You can see how it is subdivided. Now, the forebrain, it consists mainly of cerebrum, which is the main thinking part of the body. It receives sensory impulse from various receptors. The forebrain has separate areas specialized for hearing, smell, sight, and so on, and they are divided into four different lobes. They are separate areas of association where sensory information is interpreted by inputting together information from other receptors as well as with information already stored in the brain. Based on this, a decision is made about how to respond. It has a motor area which controls the movement of voluntary muscles. So, you can see that the forebrain, which is the main thinking part of the body, has the regions which receive sensory impulse from various receptors. Separate areas of the forebrain are specialized for hearing, smell, sight, and so on, and they are called as lobes. There are separate areas of association with this sensory informations too. So, what area is associated with what? We can say these four lobes are the four lobes of the brain are the frontal lobe, the temporal lobe, the parietal lobe, and occipital lobe. Now, the frontal lobe, what is the function of the frontal lobe? The frontal lobe lies just beneath our forehead and is associated with our brain's ability to reason, organize, plan, speak, move, make facial expressions, serial tasks, problem solving, control inhibition, spontaneity, initiation, and self regulatory behavior, pay attention, remember, and control emotions. So, the brain is divided into four basic parts, that is the forebrain. This forebrain is again divided into cerebrum, and this cerebrum is divided into four lobes. First is frontal lobe, which helps us in reasoning, organizing, planning, etc. Then you have the parietal lobe, that is responsible for vision, touch, body awareness, etc. Then we have the third lobe, occipital lobe, which is responsible for visual recognition, gestures, expressions, etc. And we have the fourth lobe, that is temporal lobe, which is responsible for listening, general knowledge, etc. So this is how the brain is. Now this forebrain has the largest part, cerebrum, which is convoluted as well to increase the surface area of the brain. And by putting the information together from all receptors as well as with information that is already stored in the brain, based on all this, the decision is made about how to respond, and the information is passed on to the motor areas which controls the movement of voluntary muscles, for example our leg muscles. However, certain sensations are distinct and seen on hearing. For example, how do we know that we have eaten enough? The sensation of feeling fullness is based on the center associated with hunger, which is in the separate part of the forebrain. Now, if you try to observe the structure, the next part is the midbrain. The function of midbrain is it has got corpora quadrigenea is the part of midbrain, and the central of visual and auditory reflexes are located here. And you have the hindbrain, which has pons, medulla and cerebellum are the parts of the hindbrains. The involuntary actions including blood pressure, salivation and vomiting are controlled by medulla. And cerebellum is responsible for perception of voluntary actions and maintaining the posture and balance of the body. So these are the functions of various parts of brain. Now let us look at the other use of word reflex that we have talked about in the introduction. Our mouth waters when we see food we like without our meaning to. Our heart beats without our thinking about it. In fact, we cannot control these actions easily by thinking about them even if we want to. Do we have to think about and remember to breathe or digest food? So, in between the simple reflex actions like change in the size of pupil, and the thought out actions such as moving the chair, there is another set of muscles movement over which we do not have any control, and these are called as involuntary actions, controlled by the midbrain and the hindbrain. All these involuntary actions, including blood pressure, salivation, and vomiting, are controlled by medulla of the hindbrain. Think about activities like walking in a straight line, riding a bicycle, picking up a pencil. These are possible due to the part of hindbrains called cerebellum. It is responsible for perceptions of voluntary actions and maintaining the posture and balance of the body. Imagine what would have happened if each of these events failed to take place if we were not thinking about it. So, this is what our brain is. Now, do you know which tissues protect this brain? A delicate organ like the brain, which is so important for a variety of activities, needs to be carefully protected. For this, the body is designed so that the brain sits inside a bony box, which we also called as skull. Inside the box, the brain is contained in a fluid filled balloon which provides further shock absorption. It is made up of a layer called the meninges, and there are three meninges which are separated by cerebrospinal fluid, which prevents the shock of the brain. If you can run your hand down the middle of your back, you will feel a hard, bumpy structure which is called the vertebral column, and the spinal cord is protected in this vertebral column. Now, how does the nerve tissue cause action? Now, so far we have been talking about nervous tissue and how it collects information, sends it around the body, processes information, makes decisions based on information, and conveys decision to muscles for action. In other words, when the action or movement is to be performed, muscle tissue will do the final job. How do animal muscle move? When a nerve impulse reaches the muscle fiber must move. How does the muscle cell move? The simplest motion of the movement at the cellular level is that the muscle cells will move by changing their shape so that they shorten. So the next question is, how do muscle cells change their shape? The answer must lie in the chemistry of cellular components. Muscle cells are special proteins that change both their shape and their arrangement in the cell in response to the nervous electrical impulse. When this happens, new arrangement of this protein gives the muscle cell a shorter form. Remember, when we talk about muscle tissue in class 9th, there are different kinds of muscles such as involuntary and voluntary muscles. Based on this, we have discussed so far that to think different between them. So, we are very much aware of the brain now. And the main function of the nervous tissue is to collect information from the receptors of the sense organs, send it to brain via spinal cord. Brain analyzes information, makes decision based on information, and conveys decision to the effector muscles or glands. And muscle tissue responds to the nerve impulses. When a nerve impulse reaches the muscle fiber moves and the movement of cellular level begins. Muscle cells will move by changing their shape so that they shorten. Muscle cells have specialized protein that change both their shape and their arrangement in the cell in response to nervous electrical impulse. Thus, muscle tissue brings about movement. This is how the nervous system with spinal cord and the brain works. Now, what is the function of brain in the reflex action? Generally, in reflex action is shown by spinal cord and there is no active role of brain. However, the information input also goes to the brain. In some reflex actions, such as mouth watering on seeing delicious food, heartbeats, breathing, movement of diaphragm, yawning, blinking of eyes, etc., brain is involved. Is this very much clear to you? Next we will be studying about coordination in plants. Thank you.